Hey guys, Jay-Z here, bringing another video. We finally have another update from the man himself. Chris Wilson posted last night about midnight Central Time. Was gonna hop on and make a video, but went to bed, got some sleep, and now we're gonna kind of go through it so we can see his update. There's a ton in here about the philosophy and really the direction of the game, and I'll kind of sprinkle in my thoughts as well. So. What happened with items? Like Calandra saw a number of balance changes that were not properly communicated before release. After a week of addressing feedback with hotfixes, we have written this post to explain that our intention was what went wrong, how we have fixed it, and to reassure you about the direction we intend to go in the future. There's a bit of a backstory to explain. I want to start by describing 3 philosophies that have been guiding our decisions recently. So here, these are like the main bullet points about where they want the direction of the game to go, what are the thoughts behind these decisions that they made. Philosophy 1: reward mechanism should scale properly with item quantity and rarity bonuses. For the last few years, we've been using what we internally call templates to control what drops from League content. This is where a monster, often with a reward symbol over its head, drops a specific type of item when it's killed. But Path of Exile is a game about opting into more difficulty in exchange for more rewards. You can roll your map to be harder or add sextants to them. You can play with additional party members. You can trigger additional stacking League content like Delirium. All these things make the game harder in exchange for more and better rewards. The way we achieve more and better is through item quantity and item rarity bonuses. Item quantity means you directly find more stuff, and item rarity means that it has a higher chance of upgrading to a magic, rare, or unique. Item templates ignored quantity and rarity bonuses, as a template of drop 4 rare jewels just did exactly that, regardless of how much extra difficulty you had stacked. From the 3.19 expansion onwards, we are trying to make sure that reward systems scale with player, item, quantity, and rarity bonuses. That's why the reward conversion system that higher tier Arch Nemesis monsters have is so powerful. Any bonuses you have from additional difficulty will affect the rewards that the rare monster drops. Additionally, item quantity causes them to drop more items that are converted, and an additional item rarity causes those items to upgrade, which affects the converted one. For example, if you upgrade a rare item to a unique item and then it's converted to a currency item, it'll drop as a divine orb, exalted orb, or orb of annulment. Going forward, we're trying to make sure that as much as possible, reward systems scale with the reward bonuses you get for playing difficult content. So this, I think, makes sense. They want the harder it is, tier 16 map, extra mods, extra content. They want that to be more rewarding. That makes sense. Has it always been playing out? No, but I think fundamentally, I think that's something we can all agree on. If the content is hard or requires a lot of character investment, we want that to be more rewarding than all can go tier 1 strand maps, just blazing through them. So I think that makes sense. 2, players should fight fewer rare monsters at once, but they should be more challenging and rewarding. Now this is interesting because for a game that just threw tons and tons of rares at you, this is a little bit of a change. So fights with a lot of rare monsters on screen, you can't follow what modifiers they have, what skills they're using, and sometimes not even what type of monster they are. This is true. There's a lot of bloat with the skills. Visual clarity is something that everyone complains about. This kind of makes some sense, even though it's fun to just put in a ton of monsters. It is easier to see what's going on when there are fewer of them. So I don't hate this change. Granted, they have to be at least killable because some of these arch nemesis are way overtuned. That's too much to pay attention to with too much noise and screen pollution. Yes, agreed. You cannot use appropriate combat tactics. Instead, just have to stutter step or be so powerful that it's inconsequential. Fewer, more difficult rare monsters help you pay attention to what is happening, assess it, and act accordingly. It gives you an opportunity to employ counterplay for your play skill to actually matter, rather than relying on pure character power. It is also a lot cleaner and far better for performance. Again, performance, something everybody can complain about. If you don't have a beefed up PC, it can be tough in certain areas and different mechanics. So I think this is good for the game. Just these monsters have to be rewarding. Rewards should be set appropriately for the increased difficulty of these rare monsters. Philosophy 3. There shouldn't be a large gap between the difficulty and rewards of League content and base game content. Monsters added in leagues are more difficult to kill and drop better items than regular ones encountered in the base game. When those leagues become core, these properties carry over, creating two tiers of content. One that's far more rewarding than the other. We feel it's good for league content to be harder than the base game, and therefore more rewarding, but the difference should be approximately twice as rewarding. If the gap were any larger, it would be less efficient to kill regular monsters, and a player should spend all their time focusing on repeating a small subset of content. With these philosophies established, let's look at some changes we made and then examine what went wrong and what we're doing to address them in the future. So this I kind of agree with, though I think that's already is the case. So maybe I think part of this is them trying to balance it out because, again, everyone just juices their map with scarabs, and those are where you get the majority of items. I think it's more fun when any monster, like the change to make Headhunter drop from white monsters, super rare of course, but it's great that you could kill any monster and get a Headhunter. You could crack a pot as you're running through and get an Exalt Orb or now a Divine Orb. I think that's good to have rewards be in all different places, but again, it feels like the drops are lower, and it's when you invest in juice maps, the juicers, it's been tough. So that I think there's some balance to need to find there. So balance change, rare monster normalization. Now this is going to be a long video, guys. They had a lot, and this is good because they, while they were fixing things, they weren't talking a lot. Finally, we're getting good, solid, long communication, letting us know what their vision is. A lot of league content was spawning way too many rare monsters compared to the rest of the game. In line with Philosophy 2 and general player concerns about being overwhelmed by too many hard arch-nemesis monsters, we reviewed most of the league content with the goal of making the rate of encountering rare monsters consistent. There are 3 changes that needed to happen at the same time as this. The addition of interesting rewards to some arch-nemesis mods that scale with both item rarity and quantity, Philosophy 1, and yield very valuable outcomes if combined in the right combinations to create moments of excitement as valuable rewards drop. An adjustment to the average number of arch-nemesis modifiers on rare monsters to increase difficulty, justify the high rewards, and create more random interesting encounters that add variance to gameplay. A rebalance of arch-nemesis modifiers to account for the fact that the rare monsters now have multiple modifiers more frequently. This step was not performed until after release feedback came in. It was not deemed necessary at the time and required extensive community feedback before we did it. This was a mistake, and we should not have been so stubborn about it. See, this is huge. A lot of things that creators, players, the Reddit were complaining about, not admitting to mistakes. They do that here, and they do that down further in this kind of Balance Manifesto update as well. So great to see them taking responsibility. It's tough, that there was feedback that this wasn't good and they didn't make the change, but they're admitting that they made a mistake about it, which is credit to them, and adjustments are being made to tone down those monsters because some of them, again, so hard to kill. Balance change, monster item rarity and quantity normalization. As described above, various valuable arch-nemesis modifiers convert drops in a way that directly benefits from item rarity and item quantity bonus. While we were balancing and testing this, we wondered why certain league monsters were dropping significantly more items than regular monsters. It turned out that this was due to item rarity or quantity bonus that was historically applied to monsters to make leagues feel rewarding. When combined with the new drop conversion system, these bonuses stacked exponentially and caused far too many rewards. In line with Philosophy 3, we rebalanced league monsters so that they were twice as rewarding as regular monsters and didn't have these existing bonuses. To be clear, the bonuses were inconsistent and arbitrary. For example, Yellow Beast dropped more items than Red Beast. Incursion monsters didn't have any increased quantity, just increased rarity. This really stood out to me because Magic Find Groups, Empyrean, the Juicers, everyone was always using Incursion, running temples, monsters to get additional drops, and they didn't even have any increased quantity, but the loot explosion was huge. So that was interesting that it only increased rarity and not quantity to me, because that was a surprise to me. But Harvest Monsters had both. This change was not mentioned in the patch notes. So this really seems like it was a mistake that has built up over a long time. They were not consistent with how they implemented the league rewards. They said, hey, you get a bonus here for this, we stack it to this, but then in the next league, instead of keeping the values the same, some they put up, some they put down, and it just got into a weird jumbled mix where content was kind of all over the place. And I think, we kind of see that now where, like, for example, Heist is super rewarding for currency compared to some other league mechanics. Please don't nerf Heist, GGG, but for those people who like it, I don't love it, but it is nice. It's just interesting that they've been a little bit all over the place, and it's good that they're kind of recognizing that they need more consistency. Now we get to Beyond. This item was beyond broken for map juicing, sometimes spawning over 200 unique monsters in a map. The amount of items that came from Beyond was just ridiculous. It's not okay for 15,000 unique items to drop in the same map. The new version is more reasonable, allowing up to one unique Beyond boss per map, which is honestly a gigantic nerf. But it was intentional, and we mentioned in the live stream it was reworked, with more details in the patch notes. While we took away the extreme juice opportunity, we added a dedicated reward for Beyond taint currency items. So they could have mentioned that it was a nerf. This is after the fact, and it is good to get clarity on it. However, it would have been nice to know that up front. Also, tainted currency needs to be buffed because it's not nearly as good as it once was, and it's still very rare. What went wrong? We didn't patch note the item rarity quantity rebalance for League monsters. This was an oversight due to human error, but that's why I proofread the patch notes. Unfortunately, due to the next point, this line wasn't caught during my proofread. I didn't actually understand the impact of this change. It was mentioned to me in passing that we were removing the League monster bonuses and replacing them with just quantity. And I didn't ask more questions. I was busy, distracted, and should have sought more information. Had I understood the consequences, we likely would have gone ahead with this change, but hopefully with better communication and maybe some pre rather than post-release counterbalance elsewhere. This is a massive internal communication fuck-up, and I take full responsibility for it. Again, admitting mistake, taking blame, shouldering it. A lot of respect to Chris for that. He doesn't want his team to take it. He, ultimately is responsible for the game. He carries the weight of that. Again, admitting to a major fuck up, which is what the community's been saying. But finally, here, we're hearing it from them as well. There's not sufficient time to playtest the change properly for feeling. It is unacceptable that I allowed a change like that to make it into the patch without a big chunk of time allocated to make sure the game still feels great afterwards. I also overstated the impact of the change when communicated about it in this post. I said we removed a massive historic bonus, and this caused the community to think the impact was larger than it was. Interesting. This is an interesting section. The reason why I use this word massive was that numbers sound big when viewed in isolation, but are less impactful when viewed in context. For example, the rarity bonus that was removed from a red beast was 750%. This sounds big, but a 4 mod Arch Nemesis rare has a 41,000% bonus. That's wild to me. So I don't like that Arch Nemesis, you have to get the right combos for them to be super rewarding. I wish that was a little more leveled out instead of extreme peaks and then nothing, extreme peak. I'd like it to be a little more up, not all the way down, up, a little more flatlined. But we'll see. They're going to continue to tune it. If they're easier to kill, maybe it's not as noticeable. We can move through faster. Players have been saying we've reduced drops by 90%, but in reality, the type of difference could only be true in the most extreme situations involving Beyond, Delirium, and Incursion stacked with party quantity, rarity, sextants and scarabs, and a dedicated magic find color, peak efficiency of every juice mechanism that exists. Every other player is unaffected on average. For example, when playing Breach, the reduction in currency items found is around 7% when comparing 3.19 to 3.18. In 100% Delirium maps, this difference hits 17%. In Incursion and regular non-league content, you'll find 25% more. This is interesting to me, and I don't know if it's necessarily true because maybe I got unlucky, but the incursions I did were dropping not nearly as many. The next mistake we made was related to item culling. I'm pretty sure I spoke about this on a podcast at some stage, but while we introduced a system that calls some percentage of irrelevant normal and magic items before the items drop, in higher level areas, these items that would almost certainly be filtered out by almost any item filter when were almost never picked up, the intention is to reduce clutter substantially without actually affecting any items a player would pick up. We've been gradually raising this culling value over time as we try to find a sweet spot that has been the best performance impact with no gameplay impact. Again, I think this is good. This is smart thinking about the game moving forward. It needs to be smooth. If this contributes to performance, good change. To be clear, the system doesn't affect things like rare items, currency, or maps. A few weeks before the Lake of Kalandra launched, we raised the rate again. This means that if you are counting the raw number of irrelevant equipment items on the ground, some of the reduction is due to this harmless culling system rather than the actual drop nerfs. In addition, Lake of Kalandra is an out-of-area league. Its rewards entirely come from the lake itself rather than from your maps. This is in stark contrast to Sentinel, our last league, which not only dropped rewards on your maps, but was honestly tuned higher than average in terms of league rewards. Players went from receiving masses of league rewards as they clear maps to receiving absolutely nothing from the league until they traveled to the lake. This is unfortunate timing and exacerbated the perception of drop reduction. Basically, they're saying Sentinel was super juiced when you're running through maps. Now, when you have to go outside of the maps for extra juice, it feels weird because it's sooner. I buy that a little bit. I don't know, but they do admit Kalandra, the lake was weak and they buffed it, so that's good. The lake itself was also relatively unrewarding on release, and this has since been massively increased since then. The remaining things that went wrong pertain to post-release communication. It took us several days to hotfix many of the changes, and while we have posted about each day, this full explanation took almost a week. I wish we could have done it faster, but we have tried to prioritize working on the actual fixes as quickly as we can. As the confusion about our motivations has raised a lot of concerns with the community, I should have found a way to prioritize writing this post. Absolutely. Cannot wait this long. PR 101, respond sooner. Improvements to testing and communication in the future. There's a lot to unpack from the pile of mistakes. I believe that the intention was good, but there were significant deficiencies in testing and communication. I take personal responsibility for those areas because this happened on my watch. I am the game director for Path of Exile 1, and it is absolutely unacceptable that I can miss a change that has the consequences that the League Monster 1 did. Changes like this need to be very, very carefully tested, have their consequences fully understood, and then be communicated clearly. I have let you down, and I will not allow it to happen again. Shout out to Chris for taking responsibility, apologizing. The apology's late, but it's here, so, credit for that. I want to emphasize that quality assurance team are not to blame for the issues that were not discovered before release. They work really hard and have a lot of limitations that are outside their control. For the next upcoming release, I'm specifically trying to integrate them more into development so that we get their feedback earlier during the development of features. So basically, they don't decide how much they test it, and once they give feedback, it's on the development team from there, so out of their hands. Direction from here, where does this leave us? For players who are juicing their content to extreme levels with 6-person parties, dedicated Magic Find colors, and stacked league mechanics, they no longer have to beyond to push things over the edge, but they still find ridiculous amounts of stuff. I've seen parties in this league get multiple mirrors per day, or find over 50 Divine Orbs from a single monster. For regular players who are just elking their maps and adding difficulty where they feel they can handle it, we think the drops are in a pretty good place after this week changes. They should have been like this at release, and I'm deeply sorry that they were not. Our plan is not to gut the rewards out from Path of Exile. We play the game too and enjoy finding heaps of valuable items. Could an alternate version of the game with extreme item scarcity also be a fun experiment, currently internally called hard mode, is an entirely separate thing, and its changes have not been folded into regular Path of Exile. Basically, lots of memes that hard mode was already here, they snuck it in, they were doing testing, no code was copy and pasted, just not true, just shouting it out there. Please keep the feedback coming. We are reading, discussing, and continuing to make changes. I'm very sorry for the rough start, but I hope you continue to enjoy the Lake of Kalandra, Atlas Memories, and the new content released in this expansion. So, again, good that we're finally getting this communication. Came far too late. I do like that Magic Find seems to have a huge impact now. I think it's a cool play style. It's fun. It takes significant investment. It also makes your character less powerful by going for those item rarity or item quantity stance. So I think PoE is a game about being a sandbox, multiple builds, multiple play styles. I think it's good to have this one in here and for it to be incredibly rewarding. We'll see if it becomes a little bit of a meta to go Magic Find or throw a couple rings on because it's definitely making an impact on currency now. So that may be the way to go in the future. But let me know what your thoughts were about this communication, these changes, how your league is going. I think part of it, I've started to see some more juice, some more items come out. I think as players, we got lulled into this is exactly how you juice every league. And now there's some new strategies, Legion farming, essences, red beasts. Maybe we just need to be creative with the Atlas tree and some of the new Magic Find changes. So I'm going to be testing some stuff out. We'll see what works. But overall, hope you're, if you're not playing the league anymore, maybe you're messing around standard. Hope you're having a good league, and let me know your thoughts.